Tasha Williams had lived in her suburban neighborhood for almost 4 years. At first, it seemed like the perfect place to raise her daughter. Quiet streets, well-trimmed lawns, friendly enough neighbors. But behind the trimmed hedges and smiling faces, there was something else. An HOA that loved to flex its power. It started small. Letters in the mail about weeds. Reminders about trash cans left out too long. Friendly notices about the shade of paint on her shutters. Tasha had brushed it off. She was busy, balancing her federal work with being a single mom. But over time, the notices piled up, and the tone shifted. The last letter had made her pause. Failure to comply will result in further action. Further action? Over paint? Over a trash can? It felt personal now. That morning, the sun was bright, and a gentle breeze carried the smell of cut grass through her open window. Tasha sat at her kitchen table, sipping her coffee, trying to focus on paperwork. Her daughter was at school. The house was quiet, and for a moment, she let herself breathe. Then came the knock. It was loud, firm, and official. Not the kind of knock a neighbor used when they needed sugar. Tasha froze. She wasn't expecting anyone. Slowly, she set her mug down and walked to the door. Through the peephole, she saw 3 men standing on her porch. Uniforms. At first glance, they looked like police officers. One was bald with a trimmed beard, holding something at his side. The other 2 stood behind him, arms crossed, scanning the street like they were on patrol. Her pulse quickened. The bald man leaned forward and called out, "Ma'am, open the door. This is the police." His tone was clipped, almost too sharp. Something about it rubbed her the wrong way. Tasha didn't move. Instead, she called back, "What's this about?" The man didn't hesitate. "This is about your HOA violations. We need to come inside and talk." Tasha blinked. HOA violations? Since when did police knock on doors for the Homeowners Association? Years of law enforcement training kicked in. She wasn't just any homeowner. She was a U.S. Marshal, and everything about this situation screamed fake. She kept her voice steady. "Police don't handle HOA issues." "Who are you really?" The bald man shifted his weight. "Ma'am, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Open the door." Behind him, one of the younger men glanced around nervously, like he was checking if anyone was watching. Tasha's gut tightened. Real officers didn't act like this. They didn't get cagey when questioned. They didn't show up over paint colors. She backed away from the door quietly, grabbed her phone from the counter, and hit record. Then she stepped closer again, her heart thudding in her chest. Through the peephole, she could see the bald man tapping something against his leg. It wasn't clear if it was a gun or just intimidation, but either way, the message was clear. They wanted control. Her breath slowed, her training taking over. Fear was there, but so was calm. She spoke again, louder this time. "You say you're police. Show me your badges." There was a pause. The bald man smirked and flashed something quickly, too quick to see. The other 2 didn't even bother. Tasha narrowed her eyes. "Hold it up to the glass." "Let me see." Silence. Instead, the bald man stepped closer, his voice harder. "Lady, open the door now or things are going to get worse." Tasha's grip tightened on her phone. This wasn't just harassment. This was intimidation. Her mind flashed to her daughter. What if she had been home? What if she had been the one to answer the door? Her jaw set. She wasn't going to let these men think they could bully her. Still, she played along, cracking the door just an inch, leaving the chain locked. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "What exactly do you want to talk about inside my home?" The bald man leaned in, his shadow stretching across the entryway. "Like I said, HOA violations. You've been warned. We're here to enforce it." It almost made her laugh, the absurdity of it. But laughter wasn't safe here. She tilted her head. "Funny. I've worked with police for a long time. Not once have I seen them enforce HOA rules." His jaw tightened. For the first time, his eyes flickered. She'd struck a nerve. Behind him, one of the younger men shifted uncomfortably. The other muttered under his breath, just loud enough for her to catch. "This is taking too long." Tasha's pulse steadied. They're not cops, they're imposters, and they don't know who they're dealing with. She kept her face neutral, but inside, resolve spread like fire. If they wanted a show, she was about to give them one they'd never forget. She closed the door gently, locking it again. Her heart raced, but her hands were steady. She reached for the black case on the table by the wall. Inside was her badge. Not just any badge. U.S. Marshal. She held it in her palm, feeling the weight of it, feeling the authority it carried. Not just for herself, but for anyone who might be targeted like this. She looked back toward the door, her reflection faint in the peephole glass. "They picked the wrong house," she whispered. "If you're still here, don't move a muscle. Because what happens next is where everything explodes. Make sure you're locked in, because this story is about to take a turn you won't believe." The men didn't leave. For a moment, Tasha stood in silence. Back against the door, her badge clutched tight in her hand. She could hear them murmuring to each other outside. The bald one barked something low, his tone sharp, the way someone talks when they're losing patience. Then came another knock, this one harder, rattling the frame. "Ma'am," the bald man called again, his voice rising. "We're not here to play games. You need to let us in now." Tasha's jaw tightened. Not a chance. She raised her phone again, keeping it steady, recording every sound. Calmly, as she stepped closer to the door, speaking through the wood. "You still haven't shown me a real badge. If you're cops, then prove it. Put it up to the glass. Let me see your name, your number." There was a pause. The younger man on the left muttered, "Man, just forget it." But the bald leader snapped, "Shut up. We're doing this." Tasha could hear the uncertainty in their voices now. They weren't used to pushback. Most people probably opened the door right away. Most people didn't have training. She pressed harder. "You keep saying you're police, but you're talking about HOA violations. Since when does law enforcement work for a homeowners association? That doesn't sound like police business to me." The bald man's reply was clipped, defensive. "We work with the HOA. You've been warned. And now you're facing consequences. Open the door." Her lips curved in the smallest smile. He was slipping. The more he talked, the more obvious it became. They weren't professionals. They were frauds. She thought of her daughter again. If these men had chosen another single mom on this block, someone without training, without backup, they might have succeeded. The thought made her blood boil. Her voice was cool, controlled. "If you're real, then you won't mind if I call the precinct to confirm your names." The younger man on the right muttered, "This is wasting time." The bald man hissed at him, then spoke louder. "Lady, stop stalling! Open up, or we'll handle this another way." Tasha's grip on her badge tightened. She'd dealt with threats before. Real threats from dangerous fugitives. These men weren't half as intimidating. Still, she couldn't underestimate them. Not with whatever they might be hiding under those vests. Slowly, she unlocked the chain again and cracked the door open an inch, just enough to see their faces clearly. Her phone stayed hidden behind her thigh, still recording. The bald one's eyes locked on hers. He smirked, trying to reassert control. "That's better. Now let us in." Tasha tilted her head, studying him. His uniform looked wrong. The stitching was uneven. The patches weren't standard issue. His belt carried no radio, no taser, no body cam, just a cheap holster. She spoke softly, but every word was edged with steel. "Funny thing. Real cops don't smirk when they serve papers. Real cops don't show up 3 deep over paint colors. And real cops sure don't refuse to show ID when asked." For a second, the man's smirk faltered. His jaw twitched, his nostrils flaring. The younger officer behind him took a step back. He looked barely 30, with short brown hair and eyes that darted everywhere but at her. He wasn't built for this. He wanted out. The third man, stockier, with a scruffy beard, crossed his arms tighter, trying to look tough. But even from the doorway, Tasha could see the sweat forming at his hairline. She pushed harder. "Why don't you tell me the name of your commanding officer? I'll make the call myself." Silence. The bald man shifted, his patience snapping. "Lady, enough. We're not here to play 20 questions. You open this door right now or—" He stopped himself. His eyes flickered, as if he realized he was about to say too much. Tasha raised her brows. "Or what? You'll arrest me for an overgrown lawn? You'll write me up for trash cans? Please, you're not cops, and you're sure as hell not stepping inside my home." The street was still quiet, but now she noticed blinds moving across the way. Neighbors were starting to peek out, curious about the raised voices. That was good. More witnesses meant less room for these men to try something stupid. Her heart was steady now, her training carrying her. She had them on the defensive, and she wasn't going to let up. The bald man growled under his breath, then leaned closer. lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You think you're smart? We know who you are. We know what you've done. Don't push this." Her blood ran cold. They did know who she was, or at least they thought they did. Maybe the HOA had done some digging. Maybe they wanted to scare her into silence. But he had no idea the kind of fire he was playing with. Tasha leaned forward slightly, her voice a whisper but sharp as a blade. "You don't know a damn thing about me." Then she closed the door in his face, locked every bolt, and stepped back. Her phone was still recording, every second saved. Her hands trembled, but not from fear. From anger. These men had come to her door, dressed as something they weren't, trying to bully her into submission, and she wasn't about to let them walk away unchallenged. She walked to the table, set her phone down, and picked up the black case again. She opened it, staring at the gold lettering inside. U.S. Marshal. The badge gleamed in the morning light, heavy with authority. If they wanted proof of who she really was, they were about to get it. If you're locked in right now, don't even think about leaving, because the next part is where everything blows up. Trust me, you'll want to see how these fake cops react when they find out who they're really messing with. The knocking stopped. For a few long seconds, the porch was quiet. Tasha stood in her living room, her badge in one hand, her phone still recording in the other. Through the door, she could hear the men muttering, arguing in hushed voices. Finally, the bald one spoke again, his voice sharp. "Ma'am, this is your last chance. Open up or we'll take action." Tasha let out a slow breath. Fear tried to creep in, but she shoved it aside. She'd faced armed fugitives, cartel enforcers, and men who thought they could outsmart the law. Compared to them, these guys were amateurs in cheap uniforms. Still, amateurs could be dangerous when desperate. She unlatched the chain again, pulled the door open a few inches, and stepped into view. The morning sun caught the edge of her denim jacket, her dark ponytail resting against her back. She held her phone steady at her side, camera pointed toward them. The bald man's eyes narrowed. "Finally now! Not another word!" Tasha cut in, her voice calm but commanding. "You've been at my door long enough. If you're real police, then this is your chance to prove it. State your names. Show your credentials. Do it now." The man hesitated. For the first time, he didn't bark an order back. The younger officer shuffled nervously. "Maybe we should just—" "Quiet!" the bald one snapped. Tasha's lips curved into a cold smile. "What's wrong? Cat got your badge." Her tone landed like a slap. The neighbors across the street were watching openly now, standing on their porch. A woman with a stroller had paused at the end of the block, phone in hand. The bald man realized he was losing control. His jaw clenched. His hand twitched toward his belt as if to intimidate her. And that's when Tasha made her move. She raised her arm, quick and steady, flipping open the black case in her hand. The gold letters gleamed in the sunlight. U.S. Marshal. For a moment, the world went silent. The younger man's eyes widened. His mouth dropped open slightly.
"Wait, she's
federal?" The scruffy bearded officer cursed under his breath. The bald man froze, his smirk gone. His eyes darted from the badge to her face, trying to calculate his next move. But it was too late. The authority in her hand was undeniable. Tasha held the badge high, her voice ringing out, clear and firm. "You boys picked the wrong house. You've been impersonating officers. That's a federal offense. And guess what? I'm the one who enforces it." The words hit like thunder. Neighbors gasped. The woman with the stroller lifted her phone higher, recording. Across the street, blinds lifted, people staring out openly now. The whole block was watching. The younger man stepped back, panic written all over his face. We should go. We need to go." "Shut up!" The bald man barked, but his voice cracked. The confidence he carried earlier was gone, stripped bare by the glint of her badge. Tasha took one step forward, eyes locked on him. "Go ahead. Make a move. See how fast I put you down." Her tone was steady, not a bluff. She wasn't threatening, she was promising. The bald man's nostrils flared, but his hands stayed at his sides. He knew it now. He had no power here. Not against her. Not against that badge. The younger man muttered again, louder this time. "We need to go, now!" The scruffy one backed away toward the sidewalk, sweat dripping down his temple. "This is bad. This is really bad." The bald man stood frozen for another beat, his pride warring with the reality in front of him. But then, with neighbors watching, cameras recording, and a federal badge staring him down, he cracked. He took a step back. Then another. "You'll regret this," he spat, but the words rang hollow. Tasha's eyes narrowed. "The only people regretting anything today are you three. And trust me, you'll regret it more when I hand this footage over." The bald man's face twitched. He spun on his heel, motioning to the others. "Let's go." They backed off the porch, moving quickly now, their fake uniforms looking more pathetic with every step. Tasha didn't lower her badge. She kept it raised high, letting the whole neighborhood see it, letting the imposters feel the weight of it. The three men jogged toward a black SUV parked down the street. The younger one climbed in fast, the scruffy one fumbling with the door handle. The bald man slammed the driver's side door and gunned the engine. The SUV roared to life and tore down the street, tires squealing as it sped away. The block fell into silence again. Tasha lowered her badge slowly, her hand steady. Her heart, though, pounded against her ribs, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She turned back toward her door, exhaling hard. Relief mixed with fury. They'd tried to trick her. They'd tried to intimidate her. But they hadn't expected a U.S. Marshal to be on the other side of that door. As she stepped inside, her phone buzzed with a message. A neighbor had texted her, "I got the whole thing on video, too. Don't worry, you're not alone." Tasha smiled faintly, then set her badge back on the table. Her next move was clear. She was going to call the real police. If you thought that was wild, stay with me, because in the next part, you'll see what happens when the real cops show up and how this fake HOA stunt finally gets exposed. You don't want to miss this. The black SUV disappeared down the street, tires screeching as it turned the corner. For a moment, the neighborhood was eerily still. Tasha stood in her doorway, one hand on the frame, her other still clutching her phone. Her pulse was racing, but her breathing was steady. Years of training had taught her how to keep control when adrenaline surged. But now, with the imposters gone, she felt the aftershocks hit her chest. She shut the door, locked it, and dialed 911. When the dispatcher answered, her voice was calm but sharp. "This is Deputy U.S. Marshal Tasha Williams. I need a unit dispatched to my residence immediately. I just had 3 men impersonating police officers at my door. They fled in a black SUV. I have video evidence." The dispatcher's tone shifted instantly. "Understood, ma'am. Stay where you are. Officers are en route." Tasha hung up, then leaned against the wall, letting out a long breath. Her hand trembled slightly as she set the phone on the counter. Not from fear was gone now, but from the weight of what had just happened. She wasn't just angry for herself. She was angry at the thought of those men knocking on another door. A door where someone wasn't trained. Someone who would have been scared enough to let them in. 15 minutes later, the sound of sirens broke the quiet. 2 squad cars pulled up, lights flashing. Real officers stepped out, uniforms crisp, radios buzzing on their shoulders. The lead officer, a tall man with short blonde hair, approached cautiously. "Deputy Williams?" Tasha opened her door and stepped onto the porch. She raised her badge once more. "That's me." The officer nodded, his posture shifting to one of respect. "We got your call. Can you walk us through what happened?" She did. From the first knock to the fake uniforms, from their slip-ups to the badge reveal. As she spoke, neighbors began to gather, standing in clusters along the sidewalk. A few confirmed her story, chiming in about what they saw, some holding up their phones to show the videos they'd recorded. The officer listened carefully, scribbling notes. "So they specifically mentioned your HOA?" Tasha nodded firmly. "More than once. They said they were here for violations. That's not police business. That's harassment." The officer's jaw tightened. "And they fled when you showed your credentials?" "Like roaches when the lights come on," Tasha said flatly. One of the neighbors, an older woman in a floral dress, raised her voice. "I saw them too." They weren't cops. They didn't even park straight. Real police don't act like that. The officer glanced around, then back at Tasha. "We'll get statements from everyone. With video and multiple witnesses, we've got enough to open an investigation. Impersonating law enforcement is a felony. Whoever sent them is in serious trouble." Tasha folded her arms. "Good, because this wasn't random. They knew my name. They knew where I lived. Someone sent them, and I want to know who." The officer's eyes hardened. "We'll find out." Behind them, another squad car pulled up. This time, plainclothes detectives stepped out. already taking notes and asking neighbors for copies of their recordings. The atmosphere on the street was electric, half relief, half outrage. As the investigation kicked off, Tasha stepped aside, letting her neighbors talk. But she couldn't shake the gnawing thought. The HOA is behind this. It fit too perfectly. The letters, the threats, the timing. They'd promised further action and then 3 fake cops appeared on her porch? That wasn't coincidence. Her phone buzzed. Another text, this time from a neighbor she didn't know well. I heard what happened. HOA had a meeting last week. Your name came up. You need to be careful. Her stomach twisted. She turned to the lead officer. You're going to want to look at the HOA board. This isn't just harassment. This was planned. He gave her a steady nod. We'll dig into it. If they're involved, we'll know. As the officers collected evidence, a news van rolled onto the street. A local reporter hopped out, cameraman in tow. The story had already started spreading, and now the cameras were here to catch the aftermath. One of the younger neighbors leaned toward Tasha. You just made this block famous. She almost laughed, but her smile was tight. Fame wasn't what she wanted. Justice was. The reporter approached, microphone raised. Mom, can we get a comment on what happened here today? Tasha shook her head. Not yet. This is an active investigation. All I'll say is this. Don't ever let anyone in your home without proof of who they are. And don't ever be afraid to stand your ground. Her words carried across the block, neighbors nodding in agreement. As the sun began to dip lower, the officers finally wrapped up. They promised to stay in touch, to follow leads, and to dig into the HOA connection. Tasha thanked them, but her mind was already racing ahead. She knew the HOA would deny everything. They'd claim ignorance, say they had no idea who those men were. But she also knew that secrets had a way of slipping out when pressure was applied. She closed her door that night feeling exhausted but resolute. They had come to her house with lies and intimidation, and they had run with their tails between their legs. But this wasn't over, not by a long shot. If you think the drama is over, you're dead wrong, because in the final part, the truth about the HOA comes out, and the ending will leave you speechless. Stick around, you don't want to miss this. For 2 days, the street buzzed with talk. Neighbors who had barely spoken before now gathered in little circles, swapping stories about the fake cops who showed up at Tasha Williams' door. Phones passed around, videos replayed, people shaking their heads in disbelief. The HOA board, however, was quiet, too quiet. At first, they released a bland statement. The HOA has no knowledge of any individuals impersonating law enforcement. We take these matters seriously and will cooperate with authorities. But Tasha wasn't buying it. On the 3rd day, detectives knocked at her door. This time, real ones. The same blonde officer from before stood on her porch holding a folder. His expression told her enough. Something had broken open. We've got updates, he said. Tasha invited him inside. Her living room still neat except for the pile of HOA letters on the coffee table. She motioned to them. Let me guess. They're involved. The officer opened the folder and nodded. We traced the SUV. It was rented under a company name connected to one of your HOA board members. We also found payment records, cash withdrawals, that line up with the timing of the impersonator's appearance. It's not airtight yet, but it's close. Tasha felt a rush of vindication. So they really sent them? The officer's jaw tightened. Looks that way. And when we pressed one of the men, your bald leader, he cracked. Admitted the HOA president offered them money to scare you straight. He thought sending men in fake uniforms would shut you down. Tasha's hands clenched into fists. He sent them to my home, where my daughter lives. Do you know how easily that could have gone wrong? The officer's voice was steady, but his eyes showed the same anger. We know, and that's why charges are coming. Impersonating law enforcement, conspiracy, harassment. It's all stacking up. Tasha exhaled slowly, her chest loosening for the first time in days. Justice wasn't finished yet, but it was coming. That night, the news ran the story. HOA linked to fake police scandal. The 2 video clips neighbors had recorded, played across the screen, showing the moment she held up her badge and the imposters froze. Reporters repeated her words. That's a federal offense, and I'm the one who enforces it. The clip went viral. Online, people praised her courage, her calm, her refusal to back down. Messages poured in from strangers. "You're an inspiration. Thank you for standing up to them. This is why we need strong women in law enforcement." Her daughter, old enough to understand some of it, hugged her tight. "Mom, you're a hero." Tasha smiled, holding her close. "I'm just doing my job, baby. Just doing my job." But in truth, it meant more than that. It wasn't just about her. It was about sending a message to her daughter, to her neighbors, to anyone who had ever felt cornered by people abusing their power. The HOA president was removed within a week. The board scrambled to save face, promising reforms, audits, apologies. But the community didn't trust them anymore. Neighbors organized their own meetings, talking openly about what had happened. For the first time, the street felt united, not by fear but by resolve. One evening, a neighbor she barely knew knocked at her door. An older man with kind eyes holding a plate of cookies. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said quietly. "You stood up when the rest of us were scared. You showed us that we don't have to take their nonsense. We can push back. We can fight for ourselves." Tasha accepted the plate, smiling softly. No one should ever feel unsafe in their own home. Not here, not anywhere. The man nodded, his eyes wet. "You gave us courage." That night, Tasha sat at her table, sipping tea instead of coffee, staring at her badge. The same badge that had sent 3 imposters running. The same badge that reminded her who she was. Not just a mother, not just a neighbor, but a protector. She whispered to herself, "They thought they could scare me. Instead, they woke me up." And with that, she knew this wasn't the end. She'd stay ready for her daughter, for her community, for anyone who needed someone to stand between them and fear. If this story fired you up, do me a favor, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because stories like this remind us, you don't have to let anyone scare you in your own home. Stand your ground, speak the truth, and never forget. Sometimes the badge they flash isn't real, but the courage you carry is.